Hi guys, and welcome back to Switch Up. I think you're going to really like this video. I've definitely enjoyed gathering all the footage and playing all the games to give you my opinion on quite a few different titles that have recently released on the Nintendo Switch. Stick around to the end of the video where I'm going to give you my pick of the list. I think we've got around about 16 games to get through, and a big thanks to all of you who enjoy the channel and are subscribed. Is there anything to bump up that backlog even more? Well, let's find out. First up then, we've got a game that I was really looking forward to because it reminds me of my favourite genre. In fact, it reminds me of Grim Fandango. It's called Stone, and it features an Australian, is this a koala bear? Oh, I can't get this wrong. I used to live in Australia. Oh man. It features one of those things, and he is a foul-mouthed hip-hop music listening character. Now, I believe this is the developer's first ever game. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's what I read. And it shows a lot of promise. However, it's not quite there in terms of the writing for me. Some of the lines of dialogue are quite forced, and the delivery is just not the best. I did like some of the environments, and there's certainly a bright future ahead for the developer. It's not a bad game by any means, but for me, this one would be a wait for a sale.
Slow down, chaps. Who is Roy? We got a joker here.
Hey Roy, don't do this.
I don't know you squat, Shoreditch.
Alright, we didn't come all the way from London for some fat teddy boy to get...
Then we've got a game called What the Golf that I'm definitely familiar with because my kids are always playing it on the iOS Apple Arcade. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of disregarded it. I was like, it's just a mobile game. Yeah, you know how we do. But it's brilliant. It's really good fun. It's like the antithesis of golf. It's the golf for people that don't like golf. You'll be rolling houses towards a flag or rolling flags towards a flag, or you'll go to tee up your shot and your character will just roll across the green. And then when you enter the game proper, there's a bit more choice when it comes to selecting your levels, and you work your way through quite a cool little science lab type setup. It's a good game this, decent. For me this will be a buy. Then we've got Read 2 from Ratalaika Games. Is that how you say it, Ratalaika? If it is, it's a terrible name, no offense guys. But it's a nice little title. They tend to do this quite a lot. They release these tough as nails, almost like Super Meat Boy clones, but not quite as good. But actually, I quite like the style on this one. I didn't, however, like the jumping mechanics that much. It just wasn't as precise as I would have liked. And for a game that relies on that as its core gameplay mechanic, that's not great. It's okay, but it would be wait for a deep sale for me on this one. Then we've got Thy Sword, which I thought was going to be a disaster, I thought it was going to be terrible, but I'm absolutely hooked. It's such a classic arcade experience, but done right. You control a small character who can block and counter attacks. It's very simplistic. You have to kill all the enemies in an area before you move on to the next. But it's done well. I was really enjoying this. And then between areas, you have to either purchase new gear or you can gamble away your winnings, which is annoying, before you move on to the next area of the land. This is a classic type game. It's very cheap, I believe, and at the very least, this will be one to add to your sales pickup list. Following swiftly on, we've got a remake of a 1980s game called The Eternal Castle. Now, I never played the original, but I recognised it the instant I'd booted up the game. But they've done a cracking job here. If you're familiar with the Flashback series, Another World, any of those style of games, then The Eternal Castle is going to click with you straight away. Now, you might look at these visuals and be like, oh, it's awful. But actually, if you pay attention, there's so much detail in the animation. I was like really impressed. The controls are nice, it's responsive, jumping's easy enough, you can shoot, roll, all the things that you'd expect. They've done a cracking job with this remaster, and it's a shame that it's released without any fanfare at all. I've worked my way through the first few levels and I'm having a great time. Really impressive this. Between your different stages you return to your ship, which is quite funny because your character pukes on the floor, but it's just got a great style to it. There's also lovely sound, and that's where I think the biggest difference is made with many of these older looking titles when they remaster them. If they do a good job with the sound, it can really heighten the experience. Very enjoyable. This is a buy. At the end of the month, we've obviously got the XCOM 2 finally arriving on the Nintendo Switch, but there was a title that reminded me a bit of Commandos called Broken Lines, but I never got to review it, and I finally had a chance to play it, and it's decent. It's not quite as good as I thought it would be, if I'm completely honest. You control a group of soldiers who crash land over neutral territory, but they then end up fighting a load of strange kind of mask-wearing, I don't know if they're Nazis or what. I do enjoy some of the mechanics though. You have essentially 8 seconds of moves that you can plan, so it's not just your turn, their turn, your turn, and time will stop and whenever you encounter an enemy, allowing you to string together quite a complex series of moves before you then replay the action and let everything take place. Where it kind of drops the ball a bit are the visuals. It's not the most pretty game I've ever seen, but I do enjoy those core mechanics. For me, this would be a nice little pickup on a sale.
Eat this!
I had really high hopes for this next game, and it's Arrest of a Stone Buddha, and it was so close. Imagine John Wick 2D pixel art style, and you're getting pretty close. You can grab the weapons out of enemies' hands. You do your gun carter two-handed bit, you can break their arms, steal the weapons from them and then shoot their own people. But unfortunately there's a few things that they just got on my goat with this one. The first is that you move at an incredibly slow speed, like it's painful. Things change later in the game, but it was frustrating. Another problem was that it was ludicrously difficult, and not in the way that the game's challenging, but in the way that the game's unfair. So you'll be walking along really slowly, people will be shooting you before you can actually get to shoot at them. You'll run out of ammo even if you take a gun from someone else, and then you'll get shot in the back. It needs tweaking. It's not fair at times at the moment, and that is one of the worst critiques you can give a game. If they just tweak it a bit, this could be a really nice time, but for me at the moment it's an avoid. Okay, next up we've got Golf with Your Friends from Team 17. Now they've been releasing all kinds of different games recently, and this one, it's golf with your friends, isn't it? It's essentially crazy golf that you can play online with a group of pals if you've got a group of pals to play with. On solo, it's still quite a fun little mini golf game. The visuals are not the best, to be honest. In my opinion, this should be 60 FPS at all times, native resolution. There's no reason for it not to be. They're just okay. I think it's hitting 30, perhaps a bit higher. What I will say about the game though is that the course designs are very clever, and there's some great different ones to play through. I did find the controls not the best at times and could be a bit janky, which is really a bit of a shame. They're not terrible, it's just a bit odd at times. It will just move too fast or too slow even when you're doing precise aiming. Feels like it needs a patch. It's mini golf at the end of the day. If you're after mini golf, then crack on. But for me, it's a wait for a sale. Okay, next up is my daughter's choice, and it's Gigantosaurus the Game, which is a 4-player adventure title. Think old school N64 adventures, and you are not going to be too far off. You go around collecting eggs and whatnot. It's based on the books, so there's a really nice narration that takes place over the whole thing. It is very child friendly, like this is made for kids basically, and it does what you would hope. Plus there's the 4-player co-op, so you can grab a controller yourself and help them out. Different characters have different abilities, like pushing down standing logs or activating switches. Nothing overly complex, but just enough challenge to keep them interested. And the overall aesthetic's quite nice. I like the look of this one, and it plays well. Plus, let's be honest, anything with dinosaurs just gets extra points. Whether you buy this one or wait for a sale depends on your situation. If you've got kids, it's a buy. If not, then I don't know. It's not going to be that challenging for you, but if you like the look of it, then wait for a sale.
Once on higher ground, Mazu sees and understands.
I've been really impressed with Dreadnautical. I put a lot of time in this for review, but then didn't get around to reviewing it because we had Ion Fury and some other games last week. It's a very cool game. It takes place on almost like a ghost ship, where everyone is gradually coming to their senses after having lived through these different lives aboard it and perishing and then being reborn, and finally your character gets a memory. And it's really cool. You go on runs and you'll gather different survivors to help in the effort. They'll come and join you, and then you'll have new abilities to then use for your next runs. You'll go scavenging for gear. The fights are tactical turn-based, so depending on the items that you've picked up, you may have got a pistol or a lead pipe or something a little more potent, then you'll be using those, as well as skills and abilities that you'll acquire as you go. Now, what I do like as well are that there's boss fights in here, and some of those can be quite brutal, and you gradually make your way through the different floors of the ship. It's got a real nice style and charm to it, this one. I think the visuals are nice overall. They've gone for a certain PSX era type 3D, which works. The music's good, and overall performance is decent. Yeah, I like this one. This one for me is a buy. Then we have Dark Burial, which I was going to cane. Again, it was another one of those titles. I looked at it and was like, this shouldn't be on the Switch. But then I played it. Oh my goodness, it's so addictive. It's another classic arcade experience. Really simplistic premise. You've got a bow that you can fire, but you can also use it as a platform. And it's all about precise jumping, platforming, and timing, really. There's checkpointed areas, and you just work your way through it. It's not complex in any way, but it's really, really addictive. I enjoyed this a lot. I think it's very cheap, and at the price it's at, buy right now. Told you this was going to be a big list. This takes us on to Galaxy Warfighter, which is a side-scrolling shmup that in all honesty doesn't offer a huge amount new. The art style is a certain taste. It's not my taste, to be honest. You can upgrade your ship as you go. Movement's okay. It's not the most precise feeling movement I've ever felt on a game like this, but there are some nice boss fights in here. The problem it has is the amount of good competition on the Nintendo Switch. There are some great shmups on the Switch so far, and this is a good one. It's just not a great one. It feels a tad generic. If you like the look of it, then wait for a sale. Then we've got Dungeon of the Endless from Sega. And this has been out before on Steam. I think I played this a while back, but I played a good chunk of it now on the Switch. And initially I thought it was terrible. I thought it was way too difficult and just poor. And now I can't stop playing it. It's essentially Dungeon Keeper with a few different tower defense mechanics thrown in. You start off in your ship with the crystal and 2 companions that you've chosen. You gradually unlock more of these as you go. Now, as you move into different areas of the planet, you can place towers, but you can also put nodes down. So you'll have nodes that contribute to your food, to your industry, or I believe your science, which is research. And you'll see these stats at the top of the screen. These then go towards the things that you can purchase in the shop that you find, or at the upgrade area. You can pause the action at any time and then bring your crew members back or move them to where you need to. But essentially, once you've found the end of a floor, you then have to bring the crystal from your ship to the end. And as soon as you grab it, enemies will be coming from all directions. So the towers you've set up have to be put in the right places. There's also a mechanic where you can switch off and on power to different areas to make sure that your key and the areas you want to keep alive have enough power to survive. You can probably hear it's just got that compulsiveness, but it is really, really difficult. So you have to bear that in mind. But for me, it's a good game, and I would say it's a buy, or at very least, wait for a sale. Then we've got Hyper Jam. Now, I couldn't review it before because it wasn't out yet and no one was playing online, and it's an online game. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So I finally got around to playing some online, got absolutely freaking destroyed. I got embarrassed. There's someone out there going, oh look, that was Switch Up Mark. We just destroyed him and threw him off a cliff. Yeah, but I can feel that it's a good game. I can feel the level of control. It's slick, it's smooth, the different weapons and different abilities that you've got. I can just tell this is a good game, 100%. Plus, it's nice how easy it was to get into an online match this late after a Switch game was released. And I know it's not late, but you know what it's like. If a game is not going to have an online community on the Switch, it's dead straight away. But Hyper Jam got into a game straight away, no problem at all, and got destroyed. It feels very responsive. I like this. If you're a fan of arena fighter games, then this is going to be one to look out for. I'd say for fans, this is a buy. Last but not least then, we've got TT Isle of Man 2, which is just released on the Switch and is sequel to the first game, which did well and it performed well on the Switch. Now, there are a few things with this one that I prefer a lot. I love the layout, I like the career mode and the way that you can easily choose a new sponsor, the race calendar that shows you exactly what you've got coming up, and you can be a bit strategic in choosing more difficult events that potentially are going to net you more reward, or going for easier ones, as you see where I'm going here. Now, overall performance is decent, but it's not stellar on Switch. This is one of those scenarios where if you need it in handheld, then Switch is your go-to. If not, get it somewhere else. It runs at a completely locked out 30 FPS, which would be just fine, but I think there's quite a visual hit here. Popping in the distance, an overall low res image. I don't know what the exact resolution this is running at, but it doesn't look near native to me at all. Now, thankfully, it's very easy to control and it feels slick. It's just, yeah, for me, you need 60 in a racer. So if I was going to buy this, I'd be getting it on a different platform. So it's a buy, just think carefully about where you want to own it. As I said at the start, I was going to give you my pick of the entire lineup, and for me, my pick is the Eternal Castle Remastered. I absolutely love it. It's a great game, really impressed, and I wish I'd played the original, but this remaster is remaster done right. So that's it for me. Have any of these tickled your fancy or caught your eye? Let me know down in the comments. Quite an epic video to make this, quite a beast to be honest. Had to capture all the footage for the different games, but I've enjoyed it. Hope you've enjoyed it as well, and as always, for all things Switch, thanks to the patrons as well. We've had a few new ones, which is just crazy in these crazy times. We really do appreciate it. For all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!